precisely how important Grétry was socially, what a position he achieved. There were statues of him. There were the amount of mourning of him when he died in 1813 was immense. So he's one of these figures who goes upwards, and was able to do so precisely because of the social mobility in France.
Is there something about rescue operas that would have been distasteful to him? That would seem to fit into his upward mobility. Or
I think it's hard to say. I have to talk to James Arnold, the guy who wrote the book, and ask him what he thinks. But for me, rescue opera, it's the question about, do I like a novel character like The English Heaven in the 19th century, or do I like something like Star Wars? Star Wars is essentially a rescue opera, right? What kind of social work do rescue operas do? Why were they all of a sudden popular, whereas the novel of the woman who makes good, the opera of the woman who makes good doesn't work anymore? And it was only a very brief time when these rescue operas, took over, because Grétry, after 10 years of having no performances, continues to have performances of his earlier works until well into the 19th century.
Was there a critical response to his works? Was he written about or expressed?
That's a good question. I'm not able to answer that. His music was so popular on the stage that it was used for all sorts of derivative works. So if you think about how operas are transformed into sets of variations for keyboard or that sort of thing, Grétry is very much present in those. But in terms of the Parisian press writing about him, I don't know. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah. So he didn't write any instrumental works apart. You mentioned some string quartets. Was he what did he think of instrumental genres in particular, especially as the 19th century started taking hold? Do we have any record of that?
He's simply not interested. He's interested in character. He's interested in depicting all the nuances of every human approach to the world. And he talks in his philosophizing about mixtures of traits in quite some detail. So you have this much amour propre, and you have this much of something else, and this much of something else, and the result is that you have this person who behaves like this. We think about character like that these days, I think. We think about all the nuances of character. So-and-so is autistic, so-and-so is introverted, so-and-so is extroverted, so-and-so is a psychopath. We have a large vocabulary of words to talk about how people are and how they behave and why they behave the way they do. If you think about, I talked about the social work that these operas do, the social, function that they serve. They allow us to think abstractly about something that is concrete in our daily life. If we have an opera in which there's a Trump-like figure, or a Clinton-like figure, or a Jill Stein-like figure, and they all are interacting, they allow us to think about these questions sort of from a step backwards, so we don't have to think about this particular person who rubs us the wrong way. We can think about more abstract questions of power, passion, emotion, all these things. And I think that's what really, still terribly interested in these things, or we wouldn't be watching all these movies that have the nuances of character they do. Why did Luke do what he does in Star Wars? Why did Anakin turn to the dark side? You know, it's the sort of question that happens in a tragic opera. It really is, I think.
Do you think if, well, I mean, also, I'll also ask too, if, do you think he would have had any knowledge or significant opinion about what was going on, maybe with like Beethoven's symphonies, like maybe what E.T.A. Hoffman said in his famous, The Count of Symphony Number 5, and if he didn't, what do you think he might have responded to that, considering he was so interested in how his philosophy came out of opera?
Mm-hmm. Anybody know how many performances of Beethoven there were in Paris before 1805? Not very many, I think. So I think we have a distorted view of almost all of the music of the 18th and 19th century. If you go to Symphony Hall in Boston, there's this one name above the proscenium that says Beethoven. And if you go to the Harvard Concert Hall, it has a few more, including Palestrina, if you go around the room. But Beethoven was not present for the most of the musical life of a huge amount of the world. If you think about Brazil, I know Brazil concert life very well. Brazil, the Beethoven symphonies were never performed there, never. They might have been in some sort of private performance in a house at the end of the 19th century, while every important opera would have been performed on stage in the two opera houses in Rio, right? The Beethoven symphonies were never, literally never performed in Spain until the 20th century. So how could they possibly have had an effect on Spanish musical life? I don't even think that they had much presence in the concert life of Italy, really. We don't realize how important opera was as a genre and how relatively unimportant instrumental music. Why? Because we are the inheritors of Germanic musicologists who obviously were interested in writing about what they had that was special. But it wasn't so special in places like Paris or Rome or any place that wasn't Germany and Austria, and maybe the Czech Republic, I suppose. Yes.
I make a slightly different distinction. I basically agree with you. I think part of the reason we have a distorted view is we focus so much on scores. And I think trained composers, people going to music academies, even in Spain, probably did study Germanic instrumental works, but that's not what was being performed. So the musical life of a city might have very little or no German instrumentals.
I even would go as far as to say that they didn't even study the scores. So, for example, the conservatory.
Who are they?
These people who were outside of the German cultural sphere. If I want to write opera, do I need to know Beethoven's symphonies? No. I don't have exposure to it. I don't probably even have access to the music. The conservatory in Rio was founded in 1840. It's soon produced opera composers, including one of the greatest opera composers in the world scene of opera, Carlos Gomez, who went to Italy with a government fellowship, wrote extremely successful operas for La Scala, and is forgotten because he's not Italian. But again, he studied opera in Rio. He went to Italy and he studied opera in Italy. There's no evidence that he ever had any contact with any Germanic music.
Well, but if you look at I don't know Brazilian music academies, maybe it's a distinction between opera composers and composers coming out of conservatories, which might be a different world. Because the literature, certainly in Italian and French, they talk about Beethoven, German composers in general. But that's just theory books. I don't know. It may have had no connection to people brought up in the operatic world. Didn't go through the conservatory.
Yeah. Well, Brazil ends up having a conservatory tradition that was teaching Beethoven in the 1960s and 70s. That was what you had to write to be a composer in Brazil in that period. And then once you got out, you could write what you wanted that was modern music, but you had to show that you could write Beethoven. But certainly 100 years before, no, I don't think so. So,
That sounded like it.
yeah, well, we can talk about this over a glass of beer. Other questions?
Do we know what Grétry's library looked like? I mean, we have the references. Is there any record in stuff that he left behind of what was his library?
That's a very good question, and I should know because I'm a librarian. I don't know. I know because I see all the names in the writings, but what he actually had on his shelves, I don't know. And I'm not sure whether it's possible to find out at this point or not. It may be.
I was just very curious, the dream that he had. There's a 17th century kind of literary dream tradition coming out of Charles Sept.
Mhm.
And that opening description sounded an awful lot like one of Francione's dreams, except that it was a little darker. Being met by the beautiful, beyond beautiful. Francione was in some other, like, maybe they're not underground.
Well, he clearly had perhaps more time to read than many other composers, and not only the time, but he certainly had the interest. That's an interesting question. I don't know. Do we have a broad idea of what Boccherini read, if he read anything? I don't know. Just to pluck a name out of the air. But he was clearly very much involved in the literary scene. And I think because he had this feeling of social inferiority to people like Marmontel, who wrote about him in their memoirs. I don't know.
Also going back to that reference list, you pointed out all the literary sources there. I also noticed some composers' names, and I was curious as to
Remind
like
me.
like Gluck, for example. I saw on there.
I'm sorry, who?
Gluck.
Oh, Gluck.
Um,
Yes, he does talk about Gluck in his writings.
Did he have any sort of contact or particular opinions of composers during his time as an opera composer that he might have said in the memoirs or otherwise?
He doesn't talk very much about other composers. It's much in all of these three huge volumes. It's much more literary figures than composers. He's not. I think he's interested primarily in his music and not so much in anybody else's music. He does specifically say that he is a disciple of Pergolesi. Pergolesi is at the top level for him as far as he's concerned, and I think that's because Pergolesi creates this genre of the comic opera, in which the classic example has the servo who become padrone. That is the trajectory which you find in all of these comic operas, and it must have happened a lot if it was so important in the opera stage.
Well, assuming that he had like multiple diehard patrons of his operas, how did like the public in general react to his philosophical works as like a totally different medium to him using like were they popular in general?
1789 and 1801. This Reflections remains unknown except to family friends. So there was no possibility for this 400,000 words to make an impact because he didn't manage to get it through the press. He died before he got through the press, but it was clearly intended to be published. It wasn't just something he was doing to occupy his time. He wanted to publish it and put it before the public. Again, go and look at James Arnold's book on Grétry reception. I'm sure there'll be plenty of information there. My library doesn't have it yet. Let me announce to you all that Pendragon Press is in negotiations to publish all 3 of these volumes. So there'll be hopefully a 400-page book of the essays, 400-page book of the De la Vérité, and the final volume, the Reflections, is going to be electronic only, with the expectation that we'll have a print-on-demand edition. But it's just too expensive to actually print the whole thing as the primary publication. So
That's great.
I don't know whether it's going to be on disc or whether you'll download it or what, but I am fairly certain that these will come out in 2017 or 2018. God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Yes.
Right? So it's always, we can never tell, but I have hope, great hope that these things will be published. And they'll have prefatory material and annotations and so forth by R.J. Arnold, who's the person I mentioned with the Grétry monograph from this year. Maybe that's enough.
Maybe.
Any more questions?